In 2024, I lost 4 months of work time due to health issues. 4 whole months. But here's the crazy part. While working a lot less than before, I managed to land my first ever licensing deals. I launched a whole new section of my business and I grew my existing one. How? By completely changing the way I think about productivity. Today, I'm sharing the uncomfortable truth I learned about doing less to achieve more and why most creative entrepreneurs get this totally wrong. When it comes to us creative entrepreneurs, here's a mistake we often make. We try to grow everything all at once. We feel pressurized to consistently show up on every single platform, launch new products, create content, engage with our audience, and all of this while actually creating our art itself. I was doing the exact same thing. I was trying to manage my YouTube channel, create new courses, develop products and prints, grow my social media, basically trying to keep all the plates spinning at once. And then life forced me to stop. Health issues came in the way, and that meant I had to face a harsh reality. I just couldn't do it all anymore. And at that point, instead of stopping and rethinking things, I did what seemed most obvious, which was to work longer hours on the days when I did feel better to make up for lost time. And I tried to multitask a lot more to fit everything in. And sometimes I made the horrible mistake of lowering my standards just to keep everything running. But obviously, none of that worked. It, in fact, only made things worse. So here's the uncomfortable truth that I learned. Sometimes the key to achieving more isn't actually doing more. Sometimes it's about having the courage to do fewer things. And yes, it does take a lot of courage. I feel like it's about identifying what I like to call your North Star goal, which is that one goal which has the power to transform multiple areas of your business and your life. This goal becomes your constant reference point. Every time you're faced with a decision or an opportunity, you can ask yourself, does doing this move me closer to or further away from my North Star? So, what makes a goal worthy of being your North Star? I think the first thing is that it needs to have a cascading effect. Achieving this one thing should naturally open up doors for other opportunities. And the second thing is that it should align with your overall long term vision and it should help make all your decisions clearer. For me, in 2024, that North Star goal was surface pattern design and specifically developing my portfolio for surface pattern design. I realized that building a strong portfolio in this area could help open the doors for other opportunities for me in the future. It could possibly lead to licensing deals, it could open up some passive income streams for me, and it could potentially help my art reach new audiences. All of those things sounded very aligned with my long term vision for my brand and for me as an artist, and it seemed like the perfect fit. When I looked at my art style and where I wanted my career to go, it felt like this one path had the potential to transform everything else for me. There's this quote from the book called The One Thing, which perfectly captures this idea. It asks, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Let me give you a real example of what that looks like. My 2024 desk calendar, which I had created towards the end of 2023, was one of my most successful products till date. People started asking me whether I was going to do a 2025 version, and at that point, I had a choice to make. If I did go ahead and make this calendar, I knew that I would have some guaranteed income, not just from individual customers, but there were also corporates who were willing to place bulk orders for these calendars. This would be a very easy win for me. But I also knew that I had limited time to give because of all the health issues that I was facing. And if I were to spend time on this calendar, it would take time away from developing my surface design portfolio and all the other goals that I had already set for myself. Time was already a limited resource for me, and I felt like I needed to be very strategic about how I was spending that time. So I decided not to do a calendar, even though that was guaranteed income for me. And I decided to keep my head down and continue working on my North Star goal. Making that call and saying no to something that was already working for me, that's when I really understood what it meant to have that North Star goal and to really internalize it. And that's not to say that any part of the process was easy. When I first committed to focusing solely on surface pattern design, I felt this constant knot in my stomach. Every time I saw other artists launching new products or collaborating on some exciting projects or growing their YouTube channels, I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. Is this something that I was going to regret? Was I letting my audience down? Because I did stop showing up on YouTube and on social media as much as I did in 2023 because I just couldn't focus on everything at once. So I also questioned whether my business would suffer as a result of all of these decisions. But like I said, looking at my art style, looking at where I wanted my career to go, I had to just keep that focus and just turn off everything else. I had to remind myself of the opportunities that I wanted to open up for myself, like licensing deals, seeing my art on products, and reaching new audiences. And I had to just keep going. Now, here's how I practically implemented all of this. First of all, I set aside dedicated time blocks just for creating art. For me, this was between 10 a.m. to 12 noon every single day. I just blocked out a slot in my calendar to create art. So anything that I was doing towards this goal, which could be either just working on my mood boards for a new collection, or actually sketching out ideas, or painting my motifs, or putting them into Photoshop and creating my patterns for my portfolio. All of those fell into this particular time block. There were, of course, days that I could barely get out of bed, let alone create, but I had this one small goal. And even if I couldn't commit to those full 2 hours on some days, I would at least try to show up and do it for 30 minutes. Even if I was able to show up and create art for 30 minutes, I would still consider it a win. I had to be gentle with myself so that I didn't waste time and energy beating myself up. Some days this was all I could manage, and I decided that that was okay. I started participating in a few spoonflower challenges that aligned with my art style, and I in fact used the themes that were provided in these spoonflower challenges as springboards to create new collection ideas for myself. As an example, one of the first spoonflower challenges that I took part in was leap year frogs, and I created this frog inspired pattern for that collection. But then I ended up developing the ideas behind this pattern into an entire collection of 8+ designs, and I called it Playful Pond. I also created a separate Instagram page for my surface pattern design business. I branded this as Painted Stock Studio, and I used this as a way to generate visibility for this particular niche. If you're curious about the exact steps I took to go from knowing absolutely nothing about surface pattern design to actually getting my first licensing deals, I have a detailed video walking you through the exact 5 steps I took. You can check that out right here, and I'll link it in the description as well. During this entire journey, I found myself resonating deeply with these words from Cal Newport's newest book called Slow Productivity, which says deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. Instead of beating myself up about daily metrics, I started looking at my progress through a much wider lens. How was I doing this month as compared to last month? What could I accomplish in this entire quarter? I remember sitting at my desk one day, staring at my half-finished pattern collection, wondering if anybody would even care about this work. And then the day I received my first sample of my licensed artwork on a product, everything suddenly clicked. Seeing my art on actual products being sold to actual customers, that made all these quiet months of focused work worth it. By doing less but focusing intensely on what actually mattered the most, I actually achieved more. Instead of spreading myself thin across multiple different platforms and projects, I chose to focus primarily on building my portfolio and making meaningful connections in the surface pattern design industry. Stephen Pressfield says in The War of Art that when something brings up fear and resistance, that's often a sign that you're on the right track. And I strongly felt that. The bigger the dream, the more resistance that you're going to feel. And that's exactly why having one focus is just so powerful. It gives you that clarity that you need in order to push through that resistance, which is exactly what happened with me in the example of the calendar project that I spoke about. If you want to implement this in your own art business, then the first thing you need to do is ask yourself what your North Star goal is. And you could have a separate North Star goal just for this month, or just for this quarter, or just for this year. Ask yourself, what's that one big dream that your future self would thank you for working on today? What might facilitate big opportunities for your business? What challenges you as an artist? And most importantly, what really excites you right now? To make this approach sustainable, what really helped me was having a system to track my progress and stay focused. That's why I created what I now call the Aligned Artist Yearly Planner, which is a Notion template. This isn't just another productivity tool, it's 3 years of my own trial and error with Notion, packed into one simple and effective planning system. I have made the mistake of overcomplicating my Notion workspace in the past, and I've created these very complicated dashboards that just led to too much friction, and I would never actually end up using them. So I simplified all of this, and this is what helped me through 2024, and it's what's helping me even now stay aligned and stay focused on what matters the most in my business. If you're interested in checking out my Notion template, the link to that is in the description, and it's at 50% off just for the first 50 customers. So once you pick your North Star goal, I know some of you are going to wonder, what about other opportunities that are going to pass you by? What about staying consistent on social media? And trust me, these are thoughts that kept me up at night as well. And like I did acknowledge before, I posted a lot less on Instagram and YouTube through this entire last year. But in my own small ways, I tried to stay connected and engaged with my audience. I always responded to my DMs. I always responded to comments on any of my platforms. And for me, email newsletters were the one space where I was able to show up consistently. It's a very intimate space for me, and I really love writing to my subscribers. And I really think you should also check out my email list and subscribe if you're interested. The link is in the description. But other than that, I tried not to think about this too much, and I tried to just stay focused on things I needed to do. The key is understanding the difference between growing and maintaining. Sometimes it's okay to just maintain certain aspects of your business while you focus on growing other aspects. Looking back, choosing this one focus for myself and embracing a slower, more intentional approach to everything that I was doing didn't just help me survive a really challenging year, but it helped me thrive. I built a portfolio that I'm really proud of. I landed licensing deals. I launched 3 new Skillshare classes, and I started selling my designs on Spoonflower. I feel like I have achieved the goal of setting myself up for more opportunities in the future. And like I said, my Notion dashboard was really helpful through this entire process. It helped me stay aligned with the most important things, and it assisted me in staying focused rather than taking away from my focus. If you'd like to check that out, the link to it is in the description. So remember that sometimes doing less, but doing it with complete focus and intention is the key that you need to achieving a lot more. I'd love to know what you think could be your North Star goal in the coming year, so drop a comment and let me know. Also, you can check out this video right here if you're interested in a complete walkthrough of my Notion planning system. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.